What is up, guys? Recently Venom Films asked, how did you color grade? It is amazing. And thank you for noting, Venom Films. So today, I will be walking you through my super quick method of color grading footage. Side note, last episode I mentioned college is out and that we're back on schedule. I lied. I was hired to shoot for a wedding and I'm incredibly behind schedule, so I figured I'd make this short and apologize for the change in format. My name's Tristan Watkins and this is Triflix Tips. For the sake of time, I'll be using Final Cut Pro to do this, but I use the exact same process in Adobe Premiere, After Effects, as well as HitFilm, so feel free to follow along in the software you choose. First, we're going to drop in the footage. I like to shoot at 1080p, 60 frames per second. This way I can slow it down, and it also makes it a lot easier for the computer to find a solve when applying stabilization. At this point, my Mac starts to lose a little bit of responsiveness, so I let it breathe for a while before applying a LUT. Because Final Cut Pro does not have a LUT reader built into it, and most software does, I have to use an add-on, and the one I use is Film Studio Final Cut Pro LUT Loader. I'll have a link in the description to this add-on. Next, I'll open up scopes. Almost all editors have this built in as well. The key thing to keep in mind is that the peaks should be around 100 and the troughs, or the bottom of the waves, should be around 0. Time to choose a LUT. While there are many free LUTs available online, the ones I use are part of the IWLT-BAP. They offer 100 LUTs, well, over 100 LUTs, for just $25, and I promise it is worth every penny. Again, I'll have links to their LUTs in the description below. When browsing through LUTs, at least the way they catalog them, the first letter is going to define the color temperature, so W is what I usually aim for, and that is warm, and that'll give you more of like the teal shadows and the orange midtones. Let's go with a 9320. Did you see the scopes change when we applied the LUTs? The peaks and troughs are no longer at 0 and 100, so let's increase the contrast until we get back up to that area. This will allow us to display the most amount of dynamic range. If you feel the LUT is too strong, you can always lower the mix. However, if you are in HitFilm, you'll probably want to apply this on a grade layer, and then you can just lower the opacity of that grade layer, and I believe the same principle would apply in Adobe Premiere and After Effects. Once the contrast in the LUT is set to your liking, you may notice that the skin tones don't look quite right. If you open up the radial scopes, you'll see a very bright cluster of colors. This is typically the location of the skin color. There are a couple of sources online that state where it should be, but since I have a 99% Adobe Spectrum monitor, I feel comfortable just eyeballing it. To change the skin tone, you'll likely want to change the midtone setting and play around with it until you get something that's within the right range. In my case, since I'm using a warmer LUT and the teals are the shadows, the skin's more likely to be an orange. So in order to make him look more, human, I would want to bring down the reds just a tad. This looks pretty good. Time for the final touch. I like to use a PNG vignette, just Google search it, download it, and apply it to almost everything. While Final Cut Pro, Adobe, and HitFilm all have built-in vignette effects, after years of creating content, I have noticed the effect does not look nearly as good as using the PNG image. If the image isn't the same size or ratio as your footage, just change the scale and the properties. Since this generally requires the computer to render the entire timeline whenever you apply a single image over top of it, I like to save the vignette for last, just to save my computer the trouble and myself a headache. However, if you have multiple clips, you can save yourself time for reapplying the LUT settings by pressing Command-C on a Mac, selecting the ungraded footage, pressing Shift-Command-V. This will allow you to decide which properties you want to apply to the other footage. So let's deselect the retime. And there you have it, the fastest and most effective color grading technique that I have found so far, and I use on almost every one of my episodes. Now, because this is mostly for footage, I do not use the same principle when color grading green screen footage. That is something I would like to tackle next week whenever I go through my entire green screening process. My name is Tristan Watkins, and that is going to complete today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you can forgive my change of style, this is only temporary and because of limited amount of time. Also, I want to apologize because of how far behind we are with this wedding project. There will likely be no vlog this Friday, and I know I'm sad to But to mend your broken hearts, I have 3 suggestions this week that are really going to blow your mind. The first one is called Hunter's Return, and it's a very cool horror piece created by our very own Elite Lens Films. He is an independent creator that I love to support because he is doing some really cool things, and he puts out episodes every week. Check him out. Next, we have the absolute must-see Nuke Zuka's A Virtual Nightmare. This one has to be one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time. Third, an episode I made called Why I Use Hit Film was actually featured on Digital Blast channel, and that's what this episode is. Really neat, really thankful for that opportunity. Lastly, we're going to have the subscribe button. If you like this video, feel free to hit it. I will see you next week, and until then, enjoy.